Welcome to Leadership and People. This is a series that pulls back the curtain on leadership by interviewing CEOs, senior executives, and entrepreneurs who have had large exits. We ask these experts about how they built trusted networks to rapidly grow their companies and what advice they wish they knew if they could do it all again. Today on the show, we've got Scott Johnson.
And honestly, some of the things that really just turn me on about leadership are the examples of great leaders who, because they take some time to do some coaching and take some time to reach out and help people, that they actually become a meaningful part of somebody's life.
Scott, thanks for making time.
Hey, thanks. Nice to be here.
So you're the founder and CEO of Motivosity. We want to hear what that's all about. Founder and chairman at Workfront, BYU professor on entrepreneurship, outdoor enthusiast. Am I getting the list covered there? What am I missing?
That pretty much sums up my life. I also have 5 children, and they take up everything that's left.
Yeah. Well, a lot of folks will know Workfront, such a significant success story, and what you guys have built there. For folks who aren't as familiar with Motivosity, can you give us a bit of background on it?
Absolutely. So our mission here at Motivosity is to make employees happier about being at work. And that is a topic that's really important to me. I found early on in my career that I actually care about making our time at work count for something and to have it be a meaningful and positive aspect of our life. And I know that's not always the case. And really how things got started here at Motivosity was after stepping out of a CEO role at Workfront and staying on as chairman of the board. Some of my close associates within the company, I started to hear some things that they felt like maybe they weren't appreciated or didn't feel like what they did mattered anymore. And I know that wasn't the case. At the company, we had unlimited PTO, break rooms, game rooms, free soda, food, company activities, recognition going on. There was a lot invested in making sure that people felt like they mattered. And yet there were people who still felt like they didn't matter. And that was really troubling to me. And after having spent multiple years at Workfront, really getting into the mindset of the knowledge worker and what makes a day in the life good for people, it seemed to me that there are some things that companies could do to really operationalize small activities that would make people really feel happier about being at work. And that happiness comes from being trusted to drive and influence results, being connected, like being part of the family, and being visible, being recognized for what you do. And so I started building another piece of software, ended up calling it Motivosity. And this software is a platform where employees can give each other small monetary bonuses for doing good things. It's a platform where they can connect to each other and break down silos and create communities within the workplace, and a place where managers and teams have easier access to really understand who it is they're working with. So we started Motivosity about 4 years ago, and things are really awesome.
So let's talk about this. It's such an interesting thing to see people invent something for themselves as a feedback loop to know if it's any good, right? How big had Workfront got by that point, staff-wise?
So staff-wise, Workfront was about 600 employees at that point in time. And we had seen it go through a lot of iterations from, I've seen it go from 1 employee to 1,000. And there are definitely some inflection points that happen along the way where you really have to pay attention to culture and be very deterministic about the kind of environment that you want, or it'll get away from you.
Yeah. So as you were doing Motivosity, what elements were you building from your personal experience, and what did you feel like you had to go out and figure out?
So there were some things that what I experienced in just day-to-day life was that there are areas of a typical company that are good, meaning managers take the time to be people and to cultivate that human side of work. But there are pockets where that tends to fail. That HR has a lot on their plate, and that CEOs tend to outsource culture and engagement to HR. And then HR is supposed to remember everybody's birthdays and hire dates and do these nice things. And sometimes that doesn't always happen exactly on time. So you get your birthday thank you from the boss like 3 weeks late, which is a bit of a downer. And then I also experienced scenarios where the front line would withhold ideas because they felt like they didn't matter or couldn't make a difference, or even that their boss would take credit for their ideas. So why even chip in and help? And so those were things that I had definitely seen in ours and other organizations that are not really that hard to overcome. And then more generally speaking, after doing additional research, it really became clear that managers are people who get promoted, oftentimes not because of their management skills, and they're paid on delivering numbers. And the only way to really deliver on productivity and numbers is by controlling people. And so by nature, the role of boss kind of tends to go counter to all the things that you need to have a high performance and positive culture. So what I wanted to accomplish with Motivosity is a way to push all of this down to the grassroots so that you didn't have to rely on management to get great results in culture and collaboration.
And so how big are these cash rewards, or how does that system work?
So what we typically see, and the way that Motivosity works, is pretty simple. At the beginning of the month, an employee will get, it's typically around $5, $5 to $10 that they can use to say thanks to other people for doing good things. And what that does is it causes them to look around and notice the good that's going on. And also it gives them the power to ask somebody in another part of the organization for a favor, and it gives them the power to be able to say thanks, not just in an email, but in a social, visible way with a little bit of money attached to it. And what we've seen is that just drives a tremendous amount of willingness to help each other, willingness to collaborate on projects, and willingness to do a little bit extra when you're called upon to do it.
Yeah. Usually on the show, we're not talking to CEOs about what their business is, but it's really fun that this is a leadership and people show, and that's exactly what your business is about.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No. I'm just laughing to myself because normally it's like about running the business, but what's funny is your business is about exactly this, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about, well, before we got going, you mentioned that you'd seen some less than stellar examples in your earlier career. Can you tell about some of your experiences where maybe folks were missing the mark?
Yeah. In fact, maybe, there's always a silver lining. So the silver lining in what I'm about to say is at one point, I came to the conclusion that my boss was so bad that there's no way I could do any worse on my own in business, and that I should just go and work for myself. And so that's the silver lining. But I had a boss that um, some of my favorite stories, let's see, there was a time where we were late on getting our paychecks. And somebody went into his office to ask about their paycheck, and he literally fired them over the PA.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, no, it was so. I had an environment where everyone was fearful of the boss. It was like you never knew what kind of mood the boss was in, and if he was in a bad mood and you happened to show up at his door, it could mean that your job was gone. And so that fear and uncertainty really taught me a lot about what I don't want to do and the impact that being a human has on people, not just at work but in their personal lives. Because he caused a lot of people a lot of stress personally.
Yeah. Um, what about on the other side? Are there folks in your life that you feel like set the example that you want to pursue?
Uh, yeah, I love to read. I love to read business books. I love to learn as much as I can, and so I'm always trying to adopt new ideas or learn about other people's perspectives. And honestly, some of the things that really just uh, turn me on about leadership are the examples of great leaders who, because they take some time to do some coaching and take some time to reach out and help people, that they actually become a meaningful part of somebody's life. And as we look at what we're actually doing in this life, isn't the only thing that really matters the degree that we're able to help other people?
You know, it's interesting, even from you know, my previous background running a private equity fund, right? You think about it can be very numbers driven where we won't even interact with the staff of the companies we bought or stuff like this, right? And can be very Excel spreadsheet driven. But that point applies there too of like if we are if an organization is impacting customer lives positively and taking care of people and providing service, like revenue is a natural byproduct of that, right? And then
It is.
when you think about like just quality of life of like how happy we are when we're able to make the humans we are interacting with make them smile, like when we're able to do them a solid, right? I remember being a Boy Scout as a kid and like dragging my heels when we were going to go clean up some old lady's yard instead of go play basketball. And then by the end of it, you feel better than anything else you'd ever done at Scouts, you know?
Right. That's absolutely true. And I have to say, I haven't always been that kind of leader. And when I was first starting Workfront, it was a software company that was bootstrapped for 7 years. And there was a lot of pressure to make sales, hit numbers so that we could make payroll and attempt to grow in an industry that where all the competition was heavily funded and had a lot more resource than we did. And so um, I took myself way too seriously. And the kind of, natural outcome of that was to push people and to, not be as human as I would say we need to be from my perspective today. And then the investors come in 2007 and they add another level of causing you to take yourself way too seriously because now you have all this money and you got to deliver a return, and it becomes even more about numbers and more about get the best talent no matter what. And sometimes that caused me to put our culture in second place, and I don't think that's the best way to do things.
Yeah. Um, just as a quick tangent, for people who don't know what Workfront does, can you explain what it does and why companies like Sony and Dell and National Geographic our clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We call it enterprise work management. Essentially, if you take a holistic view of the enterprise and look at all the moving pieces, all of the work that needs to get done, the assets that need to be managed, the digital assets, that is, the approvals, the reviews, the resource planning, the scheduling, the risk assessments, the understanding of costs of delivering certain outcomes. All of that gets parked in Workfront and organized in a way that even the front line knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing every day and how that can bubble up to support corporate goals.
Yeah. And, with many organizational options, what do you think it is that you guys have done special there that, Sony or Dell is choosing you over other options?
It's easy to understand. It's engaging for the average non-project manager type of user, and it makes people, again, going back to why I even got into that. I'll tell you another story. When prior to Workfront, had started a marketing agency, and we were doing some consulting in a large company that's here in Utah, one of the largest that ever was. So maybe you can guess what it was, but we literally did work for groups of people that the entire group was working on the exact same project that a different group on a different part of the company was doing the exact same project. And they both knew about each other's projects, and they knew that one of them was dead on arrival, and yet they wouldn't talk to each other, and they both kept working on their respective projects. And it became obvious that that was like pretty normal. Like, people were working on things that they knew would never see the light of day, and they're investing a big part of their life in that. And to me, that seems like, how demoralizing to know that you're going to beat your head against a wall for 6 months for something that nobody's ever going to see or use. And so I wanted to help create a solution to this issue of enterprise waste and this lack of visibility and lack of kind of strategic placement of resources inside of companies. And so that's exactly what Workfront solves, and why companies like Sony and Apple and Google and Facebook and a bunch of other cool companies use.
Yeah. Sorry for the tangent, but back to what you're saying of this taking yourself too serious. I feel like that's a trap I've certainly fallen into. Any advice for leaders today who maybe they've got a tinge of that, they recognize maybe I don't need to be quite like this, for changing habits and becoming different?
One thing that helps me is to just periodically reflect on what's really important. If you peel back all the layers, it doesn't matter how big your company was. It doesn't matter how many thousands or millions of dollars you personally have. Your family is going to think you're a hero, but only if you are the kind of, father to your family that is going to earn that respect from your children. The people that you help are going to care, but it has nothing to do with how big your business got or how much, whether or not you're on the cover of some magazine or, you're the big dog in your circle. Like, that stuff, that's not what lasts. And so I try to reflect on that periodically and make sure that I am true to what I am trying to accomplish, and that I'm not influenced by some kind of like fake competitive pressure.
I think this is a good one. I think we're gonna have to continue talking about this on episode 2. We should probably this is probably a good place to end time wise for episode 1, but please tune in to episode 2. We're going to ask Scott more about this and what the rest of us can do to become more like that. Thanks for making time, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks.